Each candidate will have up to 5 minutes to give his version of what Southbury will look like during his administration. I'll give them up to 3 minutes to rebut anything that they've heard or any additional things that they want to say. Then I will open it up to the audience. I ask the audience to be patient with us because we're going to try and get every first question first. And then we will get around to the second questions. The whole process, I believe, should only take about an hour. So I ask you, if you've got a question, make it a question, don't make it a statement. Okay? The whole purpose of this is for information. So make your questions questions. I did it alphabetically by the candidate's last name. Mr. Davis will go first because D comes before E. See, I've got an education. I give you Mr. William Davis. Oh, thank you, thank you. I've had a request from a World War II veteran who said I should ask everybody to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the Concerned Residents Club of Heritage Village for the opportunity and for inviting me here this afternoon. I welcome this opportunity to come before you, answer your questions, hear your suggestions, and get to know you all better. In most places that I speak, people are familiar with my background. However, I brought some copies of my biography for you to read. I left them in the back of the room so we could save some time there. My family came to Southbury in the 1860s and became a part of this community. Both my grandparents were in business here. My father's father was a retail merchant with a general store in Salford, and my mother's father was a farmer, and both contributed significantly to the community. I was raised to give back. In 1981, I was appointed to the Southbury Planning Commission, where I spent 29 years guiding the growth of the community. In 1991, I was elected chairman, and it was at the time when Southbury experienced its greatest growth. I was instrumental in reshaping Main Street South area with the creation and implementation of the Streetscape Plan, which installed sidewalks and street lamps along the length of Main Street South. Recently, I had the lamps converted to LED lamps, saving electric usage by 76%. Today's streetscape is one of the defining looks of the town of Southbury. I agreed to become First Selectman when Mr. Cooper resigned in midterm because of my love for the town of Southbury. I've been a businessman in Southbury for over 40 years, and I knew that with the help of the town staff, I could do the job. And I have. In an economy where most of your investment portfolios have taken a serious hit, I'm sure you can appreciate my efforts to put a lid on tax increases. Revenues have decreased, the state funding has decreased, but in the 3 years I've been in charge of creating the budget, I've lowered the spending by 3.2%. The spending side of the budget is the only part of the budget that I have control over. This year the town is spending $660,000 less than it did 3 years ago, and we have not reduced services to the residents. The unions have accepted no wage increases, and the town hall employees have not had pay raises in 2 years. They understand the fiscal reality. I understand the situation of many of my fellow taxpayers. Homes are being foreclosed by banks, electric bills are not being paid, and in some instances basic needs are not being met. I do understand that there is much hardship, both young and old, both in the village and in town. I cannot raise taxes. People cannot afford more taxes. I understand the need for a strong police department and have purchased laptop computers for their cars so they work more efficiently and stay on the road rather than come into the office to do reports. They're being trained in the use of tasers to better protect citizens and with the use of non-lethal force. The staffing levels are being monitored to provide adequate protection and prevent excessive overtime. I'm in the process of hiring one new police officer. Our volunteer fire department is well equipped and well trained. Our new library is a world-class facility, and Southbury Senior Center offers a wide range of programs and services. I've encouraged Southbury Youth and Family Services to bring more services and consulting to Heritage Village, and our Senior Services Director has office hours in the village on a regular basis to offer help and explain benefits available to our older residents. We are providing first-class service to our residents. There is more that I would like to do, especially in the area of information technology. However, I'm reluctant to authorize the large expenditure of taxpayer money to make it happen. I think that the major hurdle that we face in the next 2 years is going to be keeping a lid on taxes. There are reduced revenues coming into the town. There's reduced grant money available from the state and federal government. And the increase in taxes that the governor has suggested and has implemented are going to make it ever more difficult for us to survive in this economy. So I'm creating now that taxes are my #1 concern. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, and much like Bill said, I want to thank Brown and Echo for inviting us here to talk to the Concerned Residents Committee, as well as so many others from Heritage Village who've come out this afternoon. So thank you for spending your time coming out. I do want to say one quick word, and that is to also thank my wife, Christine, who's put up with me not only in this endeavor to run for First Selectman, but all the endeavors that we've been through the last 40 years. But this is just the latest challenge that we've taken on together, and we're looking forward to it. Ron has asked that we talk about our vision, but before we do that, I just want to say a word about my opponent, Bill Davis. When I first decided to run, I called Bill up before I announced it to the public. Bill was extremely gracious. I don't think I was a complete surprise to him. And he wished me well, and he said what I thought was very important, that good competition is what we need for this process to work. And I think I couldn't agree with him anymore. I know of Bill to be a good man. I respect him for all of his years of service here in Southbury, as well as in the military. I know he has the interest of Southbury in his heart, and I respect him for that. And I hope after this election, maybe we can sit down, have a beer, probably not on November 9th, maybe a few days after that, but maybe have a beer and have a few laughs about the campaign. But my objective today is to really highlight some differences in our experience and our life experiences and what we bring to the First Selectman position, as well as our different views on the role of government and what a good government and a responsive government really is all about. I've used a series of position papers as part of my campaign to help the voters see how I view the future of Southbury. I hope many of you have had a chance to see that or see those position papers either through the newspapers or going to our website. And if you haven't seen one of our handouts, please look for these on the back of the table because there's information about our website as well as some background information about me. And the idea with these position papers was to help identify where I see Southbury going, how I see us getting there, and I think at the same time showing how an administration under my leadership would be different than what we've seen not only under Bill, but under Republican leaders here in Southbury over many, many decades. And I think, as you'll hear me say over and over, it's time for a change. The role, or the thing that I think you will see very clearly when you look at these position papers, is that I see the First Selectman as providing a very positive role as a leader of the whole community to advance us by continuously improving. That means looking at the way we do things and saying, is there a better way to do that? Is there a better way that we can do it as a town or as a town government, or is there a better way we can do that in collaboration with other important organizations here in Southbury? whether that's Region 15, Heritage Village, the Pomperaug Health Department, or so many of the other great institutions that are a fabric of our community. This idea of collaboration is key to the way we do things, but we don't see that much in Town Hall. I was just talking with someone from the Heritage Village ambulance service. Clearly that ambulance service relies so much on the Southbury ambulance service, which in turn relies so much on the Heritage Village ambulance service. It's a model of collaboration. Now going back to these position papers, so far we've issued 6 and we have a few more in the works. The first was on the need for strategic planning. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. We need to know where we're going, what our threats are that face Southbury as a town, and begin to address those. We need to also take better advantage of our strengths, which we have many. I'm glad to hear that Bill is in favor of information technology, but after 23 years of corporate experience, not all information technology advances really require more money. We have just recently invested in an upgrade of our financial system, yet very few of the departments in town are making use of that. That doesn't cost more money. That talks leadership who says we're going to start using these systems the way they're designed and not keep repeating using the old ways of doing things even though we bought the new equipment and the new software. The third area was a vision for the future of the Southbury Training School campus. For too long we have not talked about it. Actually I had a meeting this morning where somebody was talking about their experience with the director over there, a state employee who made the comment, you know, it's about time somebody came over here to talk to me about the future of the training school. We need to be more active in that conversation, not just sit back and wait and see what the state does and then say, oh my God, what are we going to do about that? We need to be part of that discussion. The third area is a very important one to me. Even though I'm 62, my children are all taken care of, but I believe very strongly that a community must have proper youth venues and activities. I've heard just too many stories about youth here that make me nervous about them not having enough. I don't believe that the education of our children is something that just happens in schools. I believe it's a community responsibility to worry about our children. Because guess what? When I'm 20 years from now in my 80s, who's going to be paying for my Social Security? It's those children in Pomperaug High School today. Who's going to be making sure those 401k investments I have can continue to have adequate returns? It's those children in Pomperaug High School today. The fifth one was on volunteerism, an issue many of you have identified to me, as we just aren't having the same number of volunteers we used to. But we can't just keep saying that's a problem, that's a problem. We need to do something about it. And I've outlined some ideas in the position paper. And this week we presented our sixth one, which is on preservation of our natural environment, which I think is one of the key resources that we do have here in Southbury and we shouldn't take for granted. Now a lot of people hear me say all of those things and they go, oh yeah, all those things sound nice, but what about what Bill talked about? What about taxes? Well, I'm interested in taxes. It reminds me of a story I actually heard at a press conference. This goes back maybe 20 years ago by the owner and publisher of USA Today. And when USA Today first came out, most people said, you can't have a national newspapers. Newspapers belong to a town or a city. This concept will never go anywhere. They answered a whole series of questions about USA Today and what they were trying to do. And finally, somebody raised their hands and said, I've got one question for you. When will USA Today be profitable? And without hesitation, he said, as soon as our revenues exceed our expenses. Taxes are not something you address by saying, I'm going to lower taxes. You address taxes by looking at the fundamental things that drive taxes. And that's basically your operating efficiency and your grand list. If you don't have a community that is viable and attracting people to it, whether it's businesses or residents, you're not going to grow your grand list. And then your denominator to determine your tax rates is not going to grow, and then your taxes will go up. So if you don't create an attractive community, and again, we're not just us, we're competing about, some people would say not just the rest of Connecticut, but the rest of the United States, and to some extent, the rest of the world, where people can choose to live. We've got to make sure this community is always world-class. And the second is operating efficiency. And as I said at the beginning, I fundamentally believe in the idea of continuous improvement. You don't just sit back and say things are going well. That's not the way I came through 23 years of corporate experience. Every week you need to be challenged and say, is there a better way to do that? There's a way to be more creative with doing that. That's what you need as a leader. Now I have a feeling my 5 minutes are close.
You're pretty close.
All right. Bill obviously has a very interesting background here in Southbury, a family that's given back to this community over the years. I have a very different background. I've lived many places. My wife reminds me of this very often. At every one of those places we've lived, we have tried to be a part of the community and a contributor to that community. I have educational background with a Bachelor of Engineering or a Bachelor of Science from the College of Engineering of Cornell, a master's degree from Harvard. I worked for many years for what are called the National Laboratories, one of those a NASA laboratory, and another one the Department of Energy, before I began my corporate career with ExxonMobil Corporation, which many people, despite some feelings about maybe policies of ExxonMobil, will tell you it is the best managed company in the world. And I learned a lot doing that. Since moving to Southbury, I have started my own business along with my wife, known as the Cornucopia at Oldfield. And so we have been a part of this community as a small business person. And we know the challenges that small businesses face, not only here in Southbury, but quite honestly here in Connecticut and the United States. But along with doing that, I think I've given quite a bit back to the community. Much like Bill, I was raised to be a person who gives back to a community. Many of you might know of my work with the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition, but I would like to point out that after the floods of 2007, we were the first group that came forward and said we need more education and information in this town about how to prepare for and mitigate the effects of floods. Actually, the workshops we prepared with cooperation from various entities in the state, we had people from all over Connecticut come to those because there was such a need for that kind of education. I've served on the Inland Wetlands Commission, currently on the Board of Finance. I've been on the boards of the Southbury Historical Society and the Southbury Business Association. So I look forward to your questions and again, appreciate everybody being here today.